Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. This is Crime Corner with Kayla, moi. I hope you've all had a fantastic week so far. Now this week's case that we're going to be speaking about involves the murder of Rachel O'Reilly. Very upsetting case, so I'm just going to give you a bit of a heads up. I'm going to put a disclaimer here to just give you an explanation of what's going to be coming up in this video. It's not a difficult one to watch, not like last week in comparison. Last week was a difficult one to even research. This one just proves that there's people out there that you think are fine and they're having a great family life and they look so happy, and then all of a sudden it all comes out and the surface is just not what you expected. So we're going to start the case now by speaking about Rachel O'Reilly. She was one of 5. She was adopted. She was described as bubbly, bright, kind, just an overall loving person, one of the people that gets on with everybody, have everybody to get together and catch up and have nice parties and that, which is just an overall lovely person. We all know one. And then she went to school. She was perfectly fine in school. She had good grades. She was smart. She got on with so many people. And then she left school early enough. When she was 18, she decided to go and work in Arnett's, which is a place in Dublin. It's like a massive shopping centre. And she was in there working, where she then met her future husband, Joe O'Reilly. Now, Joe O'Reilly was one of 4. He left school around the same time as Rachel did, and they both worked in the Arnett. So like, you know, Arnett's the big massive shopping centre, and out of everyone that works there, the two of them decided to, you know, catch eyes. The thing is though, is how he kind of seen her. He just spotted her across the way and he was like, she's the girl I want. And it sounds so romantic and it sounds, oh god, we all want something like that. He comes up to her, asks her out for a date, they go out, they fall in love, and it was just like love at first sight for both of them. He found out that she played softball and she was pretty good at it too. Like, she was really good at sports, played softball. And one day he actually went to one of her matches to catch her and be like, I'm here, I'm watching you, you know, proving that he likes her, proving that he had a thing for her, and to ask her out. Imagine that, going to a softball and a guy coming up. It sounds so romantic, doesn't it? Well, so then in 1994, they decided that they were going to go to Paris, which is like what, the romantic capital of the world. Went to Paris and he brought her up to the top of the Eiffel Tower and he proposed, and she jumped with joy and said yes. And imagine getting proposed to at the Eiffel Tower and then having to plan a wedding to try and match up to the proposal, because that sounds, you know, pretty the shit hot proposal on the Eiffel Tower. So by 2002 they had 2 sons, 2 beautiful sons. They were super happy, they were enjoying their lives, and then he actually, Joe, got a great job with an advertising company, a senior job, which is good reputation. You're a senior, it's insane. They then decided that they were going to have to buy their dream home, which was at the Knoll in Dublin. Well, it's about 20 miles out from Dublin, but it's just such a nice quiet village. They bought a beautiful bungalow that was perfect for their family, and it's something that they've always wanted. Like, they were used to growing up in, like, you know, not crowded estates, but like, you know, bigger estates where like it's not the best of places, it's not that quiet, it's not like a little village. This was like a dream place to live. It's a dream place to bring up your children. 20 miles from Dublin, where all your amenities is where you need to get them, which is just fantastic. They moved from, like I was saying, like a pretty rundown place, not completely rundown, but they moved from that and they moved obviously up to a lovely place where they dreamt for probably a long time, because he had the money with his new job. So they had a great life together, as it looked from the outside. But on October 4th, 2004, O'Reilly got a phone call from the nursery that their youngest child was at, and they said that Rachel had failed to pick up the children from nursery. So as you would do, Joe panicked. He was like, it's not like her. Left her a few phone calls trying to figure out where she was. Why haven't you picked up the kids? He then decided to call Rachel's mum, Rose, big part of the case by the way, rang Rose, and Rose decided to go to the house to see if she could check up on Rachel. And in one of the interviews, Rose explains that as she was going into the house in Knoll, where Rachel lived and where they expected Rachel to be, she was walking up to the driveway and she seen Rachel's car. And as she seen Rachel's car, she said she felt like a little bit of a relief, because she's like, she's got to be in there. She's got to be in there because her car is there. So thank God. So as she comes into the house, she realizes that the back door is open and that there's a few things missing, and it's a little bit more messy than usual. Like there's been a bit of a disturbance in the house, pretty much. And as she makes her way to the bedroom, she is met with the most horrific sight anyone could ever see. Unfortunately, she's seen Rachel face down on the floor, and there was just blood everywhere. She said it was up the walls, she said it was on the ceiling, she said it was just blood on the carpet, face down. Horrific injuries, she could see everything. Imagine, like, she said that her face was like a beetroot because it was so red, which is horrifying. Horrifying, especially because it's like she failed to pick up her kids from nursery, and that's what everyone thinks. Where is she, what is she doing, when actually she's in her own home, in her bedroom, face down with serious injuries, and she's not breathing. It's very upsetting. Can you imagine? So as investigators were called, police were called, they came to investigate the scene. Obviously Joe was already there, and the first thing that Joe says when he sees his own wife, the mother of his children, laying face down on the floor, he falls to his knees, touches her hair, touches her body, starts moving her around, and the first thing he says, "Rachel, what have you done? What have you done?" Well, it's not like she decided, I'm going to get murdered today, is it? What have you done? She's been murdered. Brutally murdered at that. So because of him saying that, what have you done? Rose was very taken aback by that, as were the investigators. Like, why would the first thing you want to say is to Rachel, what have you done? As if it was her fault that she was bludgeoned to death. It's just beyond me. Like, that's just probably the last thing that would be on my mind if I seen one of my loved ones in that position, in that horrific scene, and the first thing I say is, oh my God, what have you done? For shite's sake, what have you done? So as Joe was obviously distraught after finding his poor wife and the mother of his children bludgeoned to death in their own home, he then was speaking to the police, and the police said, look, we understand that this is horrific right now. We have no idea what's going on. So they say that it's a burglary gone wrong, which is just crazy. We'll go into detail about that later because it's just like... And they also tell Joe, stay away from the media. Don't interact with the media. Don't go near the media. We need to have all our focus on trying to figure out who has done this to your wife and, you know, to the mother of his sons. But he doesn't listen, does he? No. No, he doesn't. He decides to not only contact the media and the tabloids, and he invites them into the house. He invites them into his home, makes them have a little look around in the house, looking where the murder scene is. So Rose is also in this house when he's showing all of the media what's going on and what's happened, and this is where she was murdered. He not only just shows them, he decides to describe what he thinks happened. So he's on the floor in front of Rachel's mother, by standing at the doorway. He is on the floor where poor Rachel has just lost her life, and he is explaining in detail how he thinks it happened. He is demonstrating blows, he's demonstrating that's how probably the blood went up that way. She was hit in the temple, so she must have been hit at this angle. It was hit like this, it was hit like that, she was hit this many times. It's like the investigators and Rachel's mother and Rachel's father, by the way, are all inside the same room, and they're all looking at him going, this isn't normal. It's not a normal way to respond, especially after you just lost your wife, and I'm going to keep saying it, but the mother of your two boys. You're going to demonstrate to people how you think it happened, because that's the first thing that's going to come to your head. First thing will be in my head is, who the fuck done this? I wouldn't be just demonstrating how I think she was killed. I'd be demonstrating on how I would kill the people who killed her. Now, I wouldn't kill anyone, just to be clear, but you get me, right? You wouldn't be thinking that way, you'd be thinking the complete opposite. So it's just bizarre, like literally bizarre. Not only that, not only does he demonstrate everything that he thinks that happened, he decides to get family over. He decides to invite her mother, her father, the children, his parents, brothers, sisters, family members, everybody. He invites them to the house and says, we should all, you know, be around, be together. I feel like I can feel Rachel's presence in this house, so we should all be here because we'll all feel more comforting. He has sandwiches out, packets of crisps laid out, chocolates, teas, coffees, you name it. It's as if it's like a get together. So if you are Irish, like I am, you will know that there's always somebody that's going to accommodate an entire family for situations like confirmation, christening, communion, birthday, anything like that, anything celebratory, there's always somebody who will host a get together. Teas, coffees, sandwiches, crisps. Even if it's a funeral, usually after the funeral you would go back to somebody's house and you would see all of this massive layout, but it's not as like a celebration thing, it's just to make people feel comfortable. But for some reason, Joe invited people from the family into his home where she died, where she didn't just die, she was brutally murdered. So they then all come along, and not only does he scoff his face, he eats an entire plate of sandwiches, he eats a few packet of crisps, he's drinking the teas and coffees, whatever he's having, and obviously people can start to notice that that isn't normal behaviour for somebody who's just lost his wife and the mother of his children. Bear in mind this is only a few days after, which is just, I would definitely be suspicious. If I seen somebody scoffing down sandwiches, acting funny and kind of like inviting the media in and going on all of these talk shows that I'm going to be speaking about in a second, it is just absolutely bizarre. Being like, let's have all, like, she's dead. She's dead, and that's how you're going to be acting. It's just disgusting. It's absolutely vile. So not only did he host all of these tours, which is actually now known as the murder tour, not only did he do that, he also went on to talk shows. Now this is where I will be showing some clips in this video, because these clips are just, it makes my blood boil. You will completely understand what I mean when you see it, because it made my blood boil. Firstly, he decides to go on a talk show to basically reach out for any help and support from the public. He decides that he wants to obviously make it clear that they're in mourning. So he decides to go on to a daytime talk show with him and Rose's mum, who can be the judge of this.
Based on the situation you both found in the house, I mean, did you get the sense that she'd been taken unawares, that this was someone that perhaps she trusted or...
Yeah, I think so. Where the murder happened was in the bedroom, which is the very last room of the house. So it's the room where you're least likely to bring someone you don't know, because you're cornered. My view as well would be, and again it's just my view, it's not a police theory, it's just my own personal belief, is that she knew the person, because why else would you kill her? If it's a violent robbery, why go to the extreme of murdering the person unless they can identify you? And that's why we've talked about this and practically nothing else for the last 3 weeks. We just feel it's someone she would have known or someone she could have identified.
So there is parts in that video where I then later seen another take on a behaviour analysis. Tries to pinpoint where he can notice how Joe is acting and responding to the questions that the interviewers are asking him. There's times where he notices that when, instead of blinking, he's taking longer pauses, which is basically an indicator that he's reliving the moment. There's also times where he's distancing himself from the statement, so he is saying something but he's also closing his eyes to try and distance himself from that statement. There's places where he shakes his head when he says something like random burglary, because it's like he's telling people it was a burglary, when usually he should have just said, you know, it was me. If you really think about it, it's like you're literally telling the person that's interviewing you that you're lying. It's crazy how people can even pinpoint it, never mind notice it on just like national television, but for someone to look into it like that and to find all that information, it's always intrigued me. I'd love to do something like that. Can you imagine having that skill? You'd be like, ah, you're lying. Do you love me? There's also a part when he's responding to the question that the interviewer is asking him about how she was murdered. And when he's saying that she was hit, it's like he's doing it. So it's literally as if he's reliving the moment. I will show you another clip and you can kind of this time have a little look into it, just like I was explaining. The closing eyes, the shakings of the head, the demonstrations. Have a look and I want to see your intake.
And if it was just a random burglary.
So this eye closure is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 9 frames, about a third of a second. And that's not a blink. So a blink is 1/20th of a second, just to lubricate the eyeball. When we close our eyes, we're distancing ourselves from the statement. So when we see an eye closure, what's often happening in parallel is a statement that the person doesn't want to be associated with. And then it follows on slightly at the end, the eyes open, and then we get this Little head shake, no, it's tiny. But he's gesturing negation of this claim that it's a random burglary too. So when he uses the word random burglary, we know from this that he doesn't believe that because he knows different.
If it was just a random burglary, it was it's somebody she wouldn't know, and after a few blows to the head, probably would recognise. But why kill her?
Wow. So he's talking about the attack, and he's telling the story, and the narrative is carrying on about what's happening, but he's reliving the moment. If we look at his hands, I can't find any other explanation for this gesture of smashing something into the floor or smashing something into someone else. So this illustration fits with an action, and you can almost see the growl on his face while he's doing it, of him reliving a moment where he was actually in the bedroom, he saw it happen, and he was doing the hitting. So we've got all these indicators clustering within about 5 seconds that make him prime suspect number one.
So as I go back to when he invited the media into the house to basically reenact the scene on what he believed that happened to his wife that day, they had serious suspicions that it was him. That's literally how it looked. But people were offering their condolences. They were offering to watch his children. They were offering to make him meals, to take care of him. He would later then call them over, these people that are offering condolences, he would call them over to the house and be like, do you want to see the murder scene? Do you want to see where she was killed? Like I said, mind blown. He's meant to be mourning his wife, the mother of his kids, and it almost looks like he's getting a kick out of the entire thing. It looks like he's enjoying every minute. He thinks he's a genius. He thinks, I've got away with the best murder here. I'm going to be famous. I mean, come on. Of course it's what he's thinking, because he's freaking crazy. But the only thing that I got from him was pure arrogance, inside and out. That's my statement. So what changed the game for Joe O'Reilly? What changed the game? What caught him? What caught him? Everything. Literally everything caught him. So technology is the number one reason why he got caught. So the Gardaí retraced his steps the day of the murder. This is exciting now because I love this part of this story. They recreated the moments of that he made, the CCTV, messages to Rachel, times he left work, times he left here, where his car went, what he was doing, who he was with, everything in detail. And his bizarre behavior, and the evidence was just about to kick him in the ass. This is just where it all goes crazy, and I'm obsessed with it. Like, there's times where you hear about a crime and you're listening to the story and all you feel is just anger and rage, and because you just want that person to be seriously punished. But then you hear how they got caught and it's like, you fucking deserved it. My apologies for my French, but you fucking deserved it. It's just amazing. So his original statement was true. He got up early in the morning, he went to the gym, went and got petrol, whatever he needed for his car, and proceeded to go to work. But what he didn't tell police was that early in the morning he was speaking to a girl called Nikki. Now these phone calls was about 4 o'clock in the morning, and they were about 27 minutes long. Then there was another one for 24 minutes long. So as they were investigating a little bit more into this Nikki person, they did realize that Joe was having an affair. He was having an affair. Of course he was having an affair. Why, like, of course you were. He then left the office at 8:07, and instead of heading to Broadstone, he went somewhere else. He decided to take an old trip back to his own home, which he never stated, which everybody else never seen until the Gardaí went deep diving into the CCTV cellular signal. So he left the office at 8:07, but instead of heading to Broadstone, he decided to head north towards home. Nikki, the phone call that we were explaining, was at 8:07, hit a cellular mast, and It was in the vicinity of his house. Now, like I was saying, when the Gardaí deep dived into investigating this son of a bitch, they went into the cellular masts. When you get a phone call, or if you make a phone call, or if you give a text, or if you receive a text, what happens is you have cellular masts all over where you live. Every time you make a call, it will ping off the nearest cellular mast. That indicates your location, the time of the message. This is what caught Joe, because as he was in this facility, he's receiving messages off Nikki, phone calls off Nikki. He's even calling Rachel, calling her saying, "Where are you? I'm upset, so scared, I don't know where you are, you haven't picked the kids up, what's going on?" He knew what happened. This is all pinging off the cellular masts. So they're figuring out, okay, he said he was in Broadstone when, you know, he wasn't anywhere near Broadstone, he was at home. That is, like I said, what catches Joe. As we get back to the CCTV, because they've already caught him with text messages and phone calls and pinging off cellular masts, they then decide to go in and look into the CCTV. And what they see is a blue Fiat Estate, which is quite a large car, seen on CCTV around the area. His car is all on CCTV driving around that area. Numerous locations towards his home. Phone calls, like I said, to his phone were pinging off cellular masts left, right and centre. At 9:41, CCTV seen Rachel head to the house. Messages from Joe were to Rachel in attempts to cover his arse, and I will read it as this is the message that he sent to Rachel at 10:05 in the morning. "Did you and the boys sleep okay? Wish Jackie a happy birthday from me, please. Kiss, kiss." So after that message, he then headed back to the quarry, and a colleague noticed him as he came back and returned to work, and the change in his demeanour was apparently turned around. She even came up to him and said, "Jesus, Joe, are you okay? It looked like he'd been crying, he was flushed, are you okay?" She then turned around. I'm only laughing because it's something that I say all the time, and you know, it's funny. She literally went, "You look like shite." His response was, "Oh Jesus," and he ran to his office. Like, called Rose in that office to then go to the house to see if Rachel was home. He sent Rachel's mother to a scene that he set up for her to see. Why? Tell me why. He's sick. So the Gardaí were building a strong case against Rachel's killer, which at the time they weren't 100% sure of who it was. So they found every single model of that car that was in that area at the same time as Joe was, and they ruled every single one of those cars out except Joe's. So then they got an engineer. This is just fascinating to me. They got an engineer to come out and to investigate all the cellular masts just to confirm that their findings were correct. Mic drop. Imagine sitting in your home thinking, "I've got away with murder, got away with perfect crime." You have the police, the Gardaí Síochána, are literally calling the engineers out to see the cellular masts to investigate your messages, your phone calls. So I love when cases take this type of turn. I'm like, this is just, oh, you know. As I said, he remains in prison. Now, Nikki, there's a bit of a weird one because there's sources saying that she's still selling stories to the tabloids. She left him when he was convicted. And there's also another story saying that they're still together. So I'm not too sure which one to believe. I mean, if you're with somebody like that in the first place, like he's a narcissistic, manipulative little prick, isn't he? It must be her kind of thing because she stuck with him the entire time through the trial. She was there the entire time. So I don't know. My belief is that they're still together. If you do know, please let me know in the comments below because that's something I want to know because I've seen too many sources with different conspiracies about it. The reasons why Joe O'Reilly got caught was his own stupidity, technical evidence, no remorse, and still saying that he wasn't guilty. And they all were like, "No, okay, bye." There is something in this case that really upset me. And I thought I was just going to be so happy about the whole thing. He's caught, he's gone to prison. There's an interview with her mother. She's saying that she's distraught. They're still living with it. They're still living with the pain. That she saw a scene that was prepared for her because after Joe murdering Rachel, the first person he calls is Rachel's mother to go and check and see if she's in the house, knowing what she'd find, knowing that she would find her daughter's body on the floor. She's so upset. She said that she still to this day can't sleep properly. It's just absolutely traumatizing, and I just want to say that my condolences go to this entire family, and it's just such a sad case. And I've heard about it before, but obviously when you do all the research and look into it, like, it does make you kind of think, have a bit of rejoice knowing that he's in prison and he's got caught for what he's done, and all of the stupid things that he thought he was being smart over got him in prison. But then you have to kind of remember that Rachel's parents are still suffering with this. Her family, her 2 boys. The 2 boys now actually live with Joe's brother. No matter how smart Joe thinks he is, no matter how powerful he thought he was, and how much control he had, he is now paying the price. And he deserves every second that he spends behind bars. There we have it. That is the end of the case from Rachel O'Reilly and Joe O'Reilly. It's a heavy one, isn't it? It's a sad one. That's it. He's caught. Unfortunately, Rachel obviously she's not here anymore. Her family have to deal with that. Her 2 boys have to grow up without a mother and a father. So it's so sad. It's so sad. At least he's, like I said, paying the price. So thank you for watching this video again. It was a pleasure doing last week's one. The amount of feedback that I got from last week's video was so unexpected. I've heard from people that I haven't heard from in years. And it's so nice to have all of your support, and to have all of the likes and shares and subscribers and watches, everything. It means a lot to me. I just want you guys to know that. It does makes me feel nice and warm and fuzzy on the inside. But thank you for all of that. But yes, you have been watching Crime Corner with Kayla, and I will see you in the next video. If there's any cases that you feel like you want me to cover, please leave in the comments below. And also, if you think I've missed anything from this case, or if you have any opinions on this case, please leave them in the comments below. But yes, I will see you next week. So from me, it's bye!